Go.
Haskins gives to Barber right up the middle. Barber is in for the touchdown.
Hey, happy football Sunday, but not for the Philadelphia Eagles fans of the nation. This is All About the Birds post-game show. Sorry for the technical difficulties, having some internet problems, so we apologize for the delay, but everything was a disaster today, from my internet to the Philadelphia Eagles on the field. They fall to the Washington football team 27-17 in just devastating fashion for the Philadelphia Eagles today.
Yeah, you can't even get your words out right now. It's so devastating.
Yeah, I'll say what a crapshoot. I would say the Philadelphia Eagles, they started off strong. Everything was looking right for them. They start off the game in the first half with 17 unanswered points, and they just got shellacked. It was a tale of two halves for the Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said, they come out with a 17-0 lead, and then Washington just scores 27 unanswered to take the 27-17 football league. And there's a lot to dive into. There was some positives, but mostly there was a lot of negatives in this football game. So Phil, I don't know where you want to start. What were your takes on today's disaster?
Well, the initial takes, before we dive into specific plays, moments of the game and all, is what did we talk about all offseason about what the weaknesses of this team were?
Offensive line.
Offensive line was the one thing we just kept talking about over and over again, and it reared its ugly head. I mean, Carson Wentz, what was the final number? 7, 8 sacks. Some of them were his fault. Some of them were coverage sacks. But you know what? The offensive line could not protect. They couldn't. I mean, I know they ran the ball very little at first in this game,
and
the offensive line wasn't opening up holes.
Yeah, they weren't opening up holes, and I'll say there's plenty of blame to go around. I know everyone wants to throw the blame on the quarterback, but in that first half, he looked sharp. I would say he was
on fire in the first half.
Yeah, I would say he was finding Goddard. A lot of it, I kind of felt like we said, they didn't get the running game established, which doesn't help when you lose Miles Sanders. Then they lose Boston Scott later in the game, and they just kept on going. And a lot of that was, I feel, on Doug Peterson or whoever's doing the play calling, because I would say when
Doug
you're
doing the play calling, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 passes to 9 runs in the first half.
And I get it. I get it. They weren't established in the run game. They finished with 17 rushes for 57 yards, an average of 3.4 a game, or per rush in the game. So I understand they weren't finding success, and I would say they were picking apart that secondary early. But when you're constantly doing play action fake, the defense isn't going to fear the run. They're not going to fall for the play action. I would say, and that was the problem. I would say. There was plenty of free pass rushers, plenty of times where I would say they came home untouched to Carson Wentz, sack him for, like you said, career high 8 sacks. He was, I believe, sacked in this game, which is the most he's ever had in his career. But like I said, it was a tale of two halves. I would say a lot of it was the offensive line, but a lot of it I would say was on Carson Wentz in that later half. I don't know if he was just the protection. He was too worried about the protection up front, or if he was looking to. The route running, I don't know. I was, especially before the halftime, I don't know what he was thinking, but he completely forced that interception that changed the atmosphere of that football game to allow Washington. They're having a 17-0 lead. You give the ball back right before halftime. They bring them back 17-7, and then it was just all downhill from there.
So the left side of the line, we had Jason Peters, and I won't say his name because I'll butcher it, but that was supposed to be the stronger side because we had Jack Driscoll and Nate Herbig going on the right side. Mm-hmm. But it seemed, now I have to see the numbers and the official breakdown later on and all, but it felt like a lot more of the problems that we were having on the offensive line were coming from what should have been the stronger side, the left side. That's where the pressure was coming from. But something right away I want to jump into that I've written it on my notebook here like 3 times and circled it. In the past 2-3 years, anytime the Eagles are struggling offensively, whatever the reason is for, one thing that Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz starts doing, and they didn't start doing it till about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter today, is they start moving to an up-tempo offense. You saw the Redskins do it today when they were behind and when they were starting to build momentum, throw the defense off, run that up-tempo offense. Why did the Eagles and Carson Wentz not start just going no huddle, that fast tempo, that we expected? That's something I would have liked to have seen an adjustment made that they would have done, but they didn't do that.
No, they didn't. And I'll say, and I just, the offense in the second half, they just could not get in any type of rhythm whatsoever.
That's where switching it up a little bit, going up tempo, letting just Carson call the plays on the fly, something like that changes the momentum of your offense, normally in a positive, because it's harder for the defense to, figure that out and all. It's just something that they've done in the past years that they did not do today once, and it kind of surprised me and disappointed me a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, I would say we're going to shift gears a little bit. Carson Wentz is at the podium right now. We'll see what he has to say about today's loss.
And then the fourth down pass to Zach when you guys didn't connect. Can you kind of take me through those two plays and what happened there?
Yeah, just missed the 1 third down. A bit of miscommunication, honestly, that, Deshaun and I just got to work through. I got to be better and give him a chance on that ball. Didn't really get a good angle on the fourth down, to be honest, so not sure. But definitely a frustrating point in the game when we need to stay on the field. We need to go down and score. And, we had D-Jack, we had Ertz, and I thought we were in the right place going with the ball, and we just didn't make the plays. And so I got to be better, and we will be.
EJ and then Martin.
Hey, Carson, you're missing Lane, you're missing Brandon Brooks, and you're missing Miles. How much do those injuries affect the offense?
Yeah, we always say next man up mentality around here. Obviously, we miss those guys being out there with us and what they bring to the table. Those all three of those guys are some of the best at what they do. But we feel confident in the guys that stepped on that field. I thought the guys that filled in did a great job. Got to watch the tape, obviously, but it's always tough to see, some of the best guys at their position go down and not be on the field. But I think we have the depth for guys to step up, and I think guys did a pretty good job.
We only have time for a couple more, so let's go Martin and then John McMullen.
Actually, EJ just asked my question, so if you want to give it to a couple others, that'd be fine.
Okay, let's go John and then Rob Motti.
Hey, Carson, we've talked a lot about that fine line with trying to extend plays, and especially when you're in the pocket and maybe there's pass rushers around you. In game, when you see maybe Lane's not there, Brandon –
looking so positive as we continue to.
Well, their internet's just as messed up as ours was here.
Well, in their defense, they are in the dumpster that is FedEx Field. I would say one of those things. When I used to cover the team, their press box is absolutely probably one of the worst press boxes I've ever been to. They have you in a back quarter of the end zone where you can't even see the other side of the field. So I'm not surprised they're having some internet issues right now, but. I'll say we're getting the comments streaming in. If you want to make a comment, make sure to do that about today's game. What were your thoughts? Who's the blame for today's loss? This is All About the Birds post-game live show. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow all those platforms for future shows as we'll be going live. Try to at least.
Immediately after, we'll try to.
Yeah, try to at least. But yeah, I'll say diving back into this football game.
As Rob said, not only about the O-line would be touched, but the refusing to run the ball. I brought it up. He threw the ball 42 times to 17 rushes. And I know you're missing Miles Sanders, and I know missing Miles Sanders changes everything. But if you want to believe what Carson and Doug say, and they always say, and they keep talking about it for years, the next man up mentality, when you go from Miles Sanders to Corey Clement as your next man up, or when you go from Lane Johnson to Nate Herbig or Jordan Mailata as your next man up, there's such a difference in quality. That philosophy doesn't necessarily work if you don't have proper backups or a good depth on a team and all.
Yeah, and I would say you brought it up on our All About the Birds Twitter page today as you took over the Twitter handle today, tweeting in the middle of the game, and you hit the nail on the head in one of your tweets. You came out and said, the fan base knew that there was an issue with the offensive line. How did the Eagles front office and how did management not realize there was some type of issue when it comes to the offensive line depth? And saw today, Jack Driscoll got hurt among a bunch of other positions. I would say they're dropping like flies today. And I would say that not just along the offensive line. And the Eagles showed that I would say they did not have the depth to go forward for this season. There already were injury plagued going into this game, and now they had more injuries in this game. Brandon Graham had a head injury. Deshaun was coming in and out with an injury, so it's just I know a lot of people,
So we brought in the Cordy Glenn guy. We brought him in for 3 days, worked him out. Well, why did we not bring him in? Did we really think that Jordan Mailata and Nate Herbig and Jack Driscoll, which Jack Driscoll actually, for a rookie, playing his first NFL game, he didn't play that bad. He made some mistakes out there, and he unfortunately did get hurt and all. But having a veteran like Cordy Glenn versus Mailata to step in when these injuries started happening would have made a big difference.
Yeah. And I'll say I maybe they feel that I'll say they didn't expect Lane Johnson to be out this long. He missed pretty much most of training camp. They probably didn't expect him to miss this game, and they kind of felt probably with an inferior opponent, like we felt the Washington football team were, that they can get a bye with it. And I would say I know one of our followers when we were complaining about the offensive line on Twitter said he's not. You shouldn't worry about it right now with Lane Johnson being out. If he's back in there and they struggle, then okay. But it was caused concerns. I would say these young guys. I would say they're talking about next man up, like you said, and they just show that there's no continuity, there's no chemistry along that offensive line. There was misassignments left and right where there was a free pass rusher to go right in there and sack Wentz, and I think that's really that affected his psyche in this game. One of the things that we talked about Carson Wentz going to this season, he gave me an elite quarterback in this league when he's on, but when he's off, he's off. And a couple of those interceptions, the lack of protection up front, the no run game, and I think a lot of it also was the play calling. I kind of felt they kept on trying to hit the deep play way too much in that second half. I feel Doug panicked with the play calling. You saw in those first couple of drives, you saw a very offense that was in sync. They were getting the underneath passes. He was hitting Goddard and Ertz. They were able to chip away on those drives that move the ball and establish some type of rhythm. But when I would say you're getting sack after sack, not having a run game. And that's another thing. The Eagles, I would say, they put themselves too much in third and long. You have to establish a run game. You need to show them that you can attempt, that you're going to attempt the run. Otherwise, they're just going to stand back there and bring a pass rush. And what was a little bit concerning with the offensive line, there was numerous times where they would only bring a 3-man rush, and they were still finding ways to get pressure on Carson Wentz, which is, I know we're injury plagued along the offensive line, but even so, that's still concerning when you have a 3-man rush and you have someone else spying Carson Wentz, which thankfully he was able to hit a first down to Greg Ward on that rollout on that 1 third down play. And I think the late second quarter, early third quarter. But
we came into this game knowing that the only strength the Washington Redskins had was their front four.
Yeah.
And
where
did we lose this game? I'm sorry?
Their linebackers aren't bad. So I would say
their front four, their front seven, that is where their strength lies. And we did nothing to help Wentz. And some of those interceptions, like you said, I will blame Wentz kind of forcing the ball on some of those plays. The wide receivers could also do some help coming back at the ball, try to break up that play. That's another thing there to talk about. But, John
Hightower, I'll say that one interception, he didn't even fight for the ball.
He did. That was something. We have plenty of positives we could take out of this game and all, but it's just so hard when you lose a game. And it's something you said a few minutes ago made me think about it. It's we almost took this team too lightly. Like we just assumed it was going to be a win, and they weren't ready for the game. They didn't play. They just didn't. You know what I'm trying to get at here? And
a lot of that I kind of felt. I would say, is like we brought up in previous episodes, the lack of preseason is really going to affect the football teams.
We knew there was going to be sloppy play. We expected that. We knew there was going to be injuries. We expected that.
Well, not just sloppy play and injuries. I'm talking about just chemistry. It didn't seem like Carson really had the chemistry with his young wide receivers or even Deshaun Jackson.
They were off a lot.
I would say for most of that game, I would say there was plenty of times where it felt like that one throw deep that they threw to Jackson. Jackson went inside where Wentz went outside towards the sideline. There's miscommunication there. Wentz was overthrowing guys. Everything was
a lot different. There's something to be said for game speed. But on the flip side, the Redskins came out just rough and like out of sync like we did. We finished the game, but they were able to pull it together. So you mentioned about the wide receivers and all. At least there was some kind of a connection between Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, and Carson Wentz. Dallas Goedert had 8 catches for 101 yards today and caught one of those touchdowns.
Yeah.
He definitely seemed more confident, or at least looked Dallas's way more than he did Zach Ertz.
I'll say the one thing Wentz, I'll say, did do well this game that I would say he really hasn't done well in the past. I felt like he was going through his progressions a little bit more. There was times where he was looking at a guy, looking at a route, and then he realized there was nothing there, and then he would find the wide open guy, especially early on in this football game. But I would say then this is another. You bring up Dallas Goedert, and I'll say Zach Ertz had an okay game. He started off strong, but he finished with 3 catches, 18 yards, and a touchdown. So I would say we keep on having the whole discussion of trading Dallas Goedert or trading Zach Ertz or who do you pay or this and that. I understand, obviously, you can't pay everyone in this league, but right now the Philadelphia Eagles are not trading either one of these guys right now until at least the offseason. I would say you see how much that Carson Wentz relies on these two guys and just the personnel that they put out there on that offense. I would say you see a lot of 2 tight end sets, and these guys are both versatile weapons, especially when you're not getting much production from your wide receivers. Jalen Reagor, I would say, was your leading wide receiver with that one big 55-yard bomb that he caught on 3rd down earlier in the first half. Deshaun Jackson with 2 receptions for 46 yards. Your leading receiver as far as receptions go is our boy Greg Ward that you didn't even want to make the football team. He had 31 yards. So
yeah, but again, there's the Greg Ward thing. Isn't there a better wide receiver that can do a little bit more? I mean, he had 5 catches for 31 yards. Is that really what you want out of your slot guy? I mean, you kind of expect a little bit more. He's not capable of breaking tackles. He's not able to run past people. He can catch that short slant, but then that yak yard that we talk about in fantasy, he doesn't have that ability. You know, a Julian Edelman, if you want to look at one of the better slot receivers in the past 10 years in the league, when he catches that ball, he has the ability to break tackles, shoot down the field, and turn a short little pass into a big play. You'll never see that out of Greg Ward, and that's a problem. That's where they need to get Jalen Reagor more in tune with the offense and get him in that slot because at least he's got the speed to be able to break away from some of those plays.
Well, Reagor develops one of these young guys, either Quez Watkins or Hightower, to get things going. I would say to have that speed, but I'll say Greg Ward's a nice receiver. He's basically the Jason Vaughn of this generation of this football team.
I know I'm hard on Greg Ward. I
would say I understand we want a superstar out of every player that we have on this football team, but it's not going to happen. He's nice. No. He's a nice third receiver, a guy that can move the chains for you. He has good hands, and he's someone that Carson Wentz relies on. But
yep. So you see someone checking in, George. You know, agreeing with me that he's irrelevant. That's actually a good choice of words. Irrelevant yards. It's a very good choice of words.
He had that one big 3rd down catch. I would say
he had the one catch and all. The one thing, if you want to talk wide receivers, that was noticeable, and we heard a lot about Hightower, a lot about Watkins and these rookies in camp, but we heard a lot about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in camp. He was on the field barely at all. I saw him blocking on one run play, and that was it. He did not get targeted, to my knowledge, once by Carson Wentz. I don't even think he was out there for a pass play. That's kind of, Coach Johnny checking in. He was a Houdini. He disappeared big time today. Or he just wasn't high enough on Doug's, chart to get plays and all. So I was kind of surprised. I really expected to see him come out and at least get targeted once or twice, see if he can develop some confidence back. So that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah. I'll say shifting gears a little bit. I know we're a little bit harsh on the offense right now, and rightfully so. So they start off strong, but they come away with no points in the second half. You allowed an inferior team like the Washington football team to come back in this football game and rattle 27 points. I know everyone's going to try to put a lot of blame on the defense, but I'll say surprisingly so. The defense, for the most part, they played pretty well today. I know the scoreboard doesn't really show it, the fact that technically they gave up 27 points, but the offense put them in some bad situations at point, especially
a lot of short fields.
Yeah, especially those 2 turnovers by Wentz gave them the short field that Washington was able to execute and turn those turnovers into points. And I would say the one bright side, I'll say that from this game, and we were talking about very early on, I would say was our interior defensive lineman Malik Jackson, a guy who we really didn't get to see much because he got hurt in the first game of the year, but I'll say the one positive point I'll say is him and Fletcher Cox in that front four. They were playing extremely well. They were finding pressure on Haskins. They were rattling him a bit. The one thing I would say Jim Schwartz and the defense has to do a little better job is, especially against these dual threat running or quarterbacks is they really need to find a way to contain him. There was that big third down play, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 or whatever, and they allowed Dwayne Haskins to just roll out of the pocket and pick up the first down on the run. So I'll say that was one of the matchups that I was eyeing going into this game is how are the linebackers, how are they going to try to shut down the run game, how are they going to spy Haskins going against a dual threat quarterback like himself.
I was gonna, you bringing up Malik Jackson, he made some really big plays early on. It was what we expected out of him last year before he got hurt pretty early. The one thing I wrote down notes in between watching the game and tweeting all day long, wrote down names, minutes in games and stuff. And the one thing I didn't expect to write down was the linebackers' names, because that's in my mind. It's the offensive line and the linebackers. That's the two weakest spots on this team. But I wrote down Duke Riley's name multiple times. I wrote down Nathan Geary's name multiple times. Riley showed me something. He dropped back in coverage against running backs and tight ends multiple times, made some really solid plays. The only time a tight end really made a play was on that early touchdown for Washington. But I'm not sure. I have to go back and rewatch to see who. Somebody blew a coverage there. I'm not sure who it was. I didn't get a good replay watch.
With the wide open touchdown, the back of the end
zone?
Wide
open touch. Whose was that?
I don't know who that was. I don't know if that was a safety or if it was the linebacker or what, but I'll say, there was something.
But Duke Riley, in a loss, Duke Riley could be pulled out as not impressive per se, but at least he showed something that maybe it's not as lost the linebacker core as we thought it would be. And then, like I said, Nathan Geary made a few plays behind the line of scrimmage, so that was really nice to see. But again, like you said, Malik Jackson, Fletcher Cox, imagine once we get Jason Hargrave back,
that rotation,
that rotation up front is going to be great. It's going to be better than Washington's, and that's where their strength is. So it was really nice to see that.
Yeah, definitely nice to see. But I'll say just trying to dissect this game. It's very frustrating, especially if I'll say when we had that huge double-digit lead, 17-point lead early on in the first half, to come away and lose this football game. A team that I'll say doesn't have much expectations. They have a new head coach with Ron Rivera, and I'll say on paper, we were discussing all offseason going into this game. The Philadelphia Eagles were a better football team than the Washington football team going into this game, and they still
are a better football team than the Washington. But
you can be a better team on paper all you want, but if you don't go out there and perform on the field like today, you're going to end up losing. I would say Carson Wentz with the interceptions were huge. Like we keep on bringing up, they couldn't establish a run game, which put a lot of pressure on Wentz. And that's the one thing about Carson Wentz that we keep on trying to figure out. Can he handle the pressure of winning big games if relied on him? It showed today that the offense couldn't get clicking on the ground, and he relied a lot on him. Granted, not all of it was on him, like we keep on saying. A lot of it was on route running, wide receivers, play calling. But a couple of those throws, he was erratic. He was forcing stuff. It was like Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He was great in the first half. Second half, he just absolutely sucked. I'm sorry to say, but I know he's Wentz.
I dish out a lot of criticism to other players. I'll dish it out. Wentz did not play well, especially in the second half. But I'm going to put more of the blame on Doug Peterson, his play calling, him having, you say that, Ron Rivera, the new coach, Riverboat Ron, when we did our NFC East breakdown, it feels like months ago when we had that episode, we talked about the Washington offseason. I said Riverboat Ron was good for at least 1 or 2 extra wins for Washington because he is a really good coach. He motivates his players. He gets them ready to go. Doug didn't do that. That's one of the things that he's normally really good at, is getting his team ready to play. But he did nothing today. He made no adjustments. He made no attempt to fire the guys up. He let this team down, I think, the biggest, because he didn't have this team ready to go at all.
Well, then in decision making, I would say, granted, it didn't come out to bite them in the butt, but I understand being aggressive. But right before halftime, you're up 17-7. You decide to throw 3 straight plays, 3 and out, and luckily there was enough time that you were able to chew off. But Washington still had 3 timeouts to use. So if for some reason you gave them enough time, they could have got points out from that possession as well. And then I'll say that basically what was what sealed the game is it was that 4th and 3 call in your own territory to go for it, only down a touchdown. I'll say in that situation, I understand. I'll say you haven't played well in over half of football, but you have to play a numbers game. And I'll say if you put
they still had their 3 timeouts at that point, and they could have pinned them deep, gotten a few stops, And yeah,
because overall the defense played well for the most part, besides a couple situations. There were a couple of those drives in that second half. They just couldn't get off the football field. There was times where Washington was just chipping away, picking up third down after third down. Haskins was very efficient, saying he actually didn't have too bad of a day. He was 17 to 31, 178 yards and a touchdown through the air. So
a lot of that came in the second half, though, because at the end of the first half, he was well below 50% completion. His yardage was low. And like, again, we didn't give up. We gave up 178 yards passing and like 85, 84 yards rushing. So our defense played well. So you've got to put the game in the defense's hand. You got to punt at that situation there. So again, where Wentz, he did not play well today. I'm not going to deny that. I'm putting more of the onus. I'm sorry?
He started off well.
Yeah, he started off well. And that's – you get out to that 17-0 lead, you see the offensive line struggling. You got to start calling some run plays. You got to start calling some draws. You got to do something. Put a 6 offense. Matt Pryor didn't play at all today. Yeah. How he didn't play, I have no idea. But you could have put 6 offensive linemen out there. You could have run a 13 personnel if you wanted to. To give some more protection to Carson Wentz. So.
Well, I was saying the one thing that I would say, like you said, Doug Peterson needs to find a way to adjust mid-game, and that's one thing he did not do today. And I was expecting, we were talking going into this game, we were expecting, because we didn't know how the offensive line was going to uphold the Washington's pass rush, and we were talking like the one way that they can eliminate their pass rush is the quick slants, the quick routes, dump it off. You didn't see a lot of that today. I would say you didn't see the screens out of the backfield. You saw mostly play action. They're trying to go deep routes. Not a lot of stuff underneath to chip away, pick up first downs. They were just. They were very inept. They just couldn't get. They weren't clicking on all cylinders. And I'll say that's one thing. I'll say that it's going to be worrying this season. If the offense struggles, this team's going to struggle. I'll say this: the defense played well overall, but when you're playing against top-notch offenses like the New Orleans Saints or some of these top teams in this league, like the 49ers, you can't allow teams to stick around and allow them to come back like this. And
if our offensive line couldn't stop Washington, what are they going to do when we face Aaron Donald?
Yeah, Donald's going to be a beast next week.
Wentz will not complete the game.
No.
At that pace. So there's definitely a lot of soul searching after. It's hard to. I don't want to sound like the season's over, jump off the bridge after the first loss. As I think it was George put it, we got the dumb loss out of the way, But after week 1 against a team like Washington, Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz are really going to have to look at themselves in the mirror and realize that they are the 2 keys to this team's success, and that they have to step their games up on the field and coaching and play calling, because we cannot play like this. Now, next week we get Miles Sanders back, maybe we get Lane Johnson back. Things change, and I really don't think enough talk is done on the loss of Miles Sanders this week and how important that is, because not having to play defense against Boston Scott and Corey Clement versus Miles Sanders, it's a totally different ball game.
Yeah, so and that changes your offensive game plan. I'll say if Miles is the type of guy that he's elusive, he has quick speed, he cuts up field. He's a guy that I'll say he can pick up 5-6 yards on first down and make it more manageable for your quarterback to open that play action game. But I'll say, like you said, we finished with 17 rushes, 57 yards, 3.4 yards a carry. Our leading rusher was Boston Scott with 9 carries at 35 yards. His long at 13. That's not get the job done. I would say, and like we keep on bringing up, the unbalanced attack.
Early in the first quarter,
who's Andy Reid out there?
The first 16 plays, 12 of them were passes.
Yeah.
And I know we were scoring at that moment, but once you get a score or 2, then you need to rebalance it out and establish that run. You really do.
And that was the difference in coaching today. Look at Ron Rivera. I would say they came out and they attacked him and through the air, and he found the way. Granted, him and Jack Del Rio are 2 great defensive minds. They got out there and got a game plan, adjust on the fly, and rattled Carson Wentz in this Eagles offense. They got home 8 times, sacked him 8 times for 62 yards. Carson Wentz's numbers end up being 24 for 42, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions with a quarterback rating of 72.5. Sorry, Phil. I would say you might want to throw out your Wentz's MVP bet that you put on.
That Wentz MVP bet, it took a real big hit. I bet you I can get better odds tomorrow on him winning MVP now. I bet you those odds are going to improve. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm not letting him off the hook, but I'm not putting as much of the blame on him as others may do. It really comes down to the coaching, the team being ready, the lack of depth on the offensive line. There's so many other things. Last year, Carson did have some of these same issues, but he put the team on the back and carried them to a lot of wins at the end of the season. He just didn't do that today. And that comes down to the lack of offseason, the lack of faith, that the rust was there and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to really put a finger on exactly who's the most to blame here.
I'll say there's plenty of blame to go around. I'll say Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson, a little bit on the defense. I'll say even though they played well, they still couldn't get off the field despite times where the Reds or Washington got the short field. But I'll say this could have been a lot worse. It might have been over even earlier if Washington didn't miss that field goal early on. I would say that was one of those things, and that's another thing. I would say one of the things I noticed from Carson Wentz, and once again, I'm not trying to harp on him, but as the quarterback, you need to realize, and I understand. I tweeted out on my Twitter at Jeff Warner NFL that I would say I love Wentz's heart. I would say I love how he wants to go out there and extend plays and try to go out there and make a big play each time. But sometimes you just need to realize when a play just breaks down and get rid of the football or take the sack, they always end up costly. There was that one play where he was sacked on I think second down, and Chase Young stripped him. Thankfully, it was covered for us, which I think they only ended up getting a field goal. And then there was
another one when he got sacked that dropped him out of field goal range. Well, he could have simply thrown that ball away. Well, he tried to continue extending the play.
Yeah, but they went for the field goal. If he didn't get sacked, I think Elliott was like 2 yards short of that. He barely just missed the crossbar. Yeah. So I think those are instances that he needs to realize where you are on the field and what's the best scenario. Sometimes getting sacked or throwing it away is better than throwing an interception or turning the ball over.
Here's another key play that we haven't mentioned in the little bit of the post-game live show that I was watching on NBC Sports before when we were trying to figure out our internet issues here. Was I didn't hear anybody mention it once. We missed 2 fourth and shorts. But the one that was key, this whole game turns out differently potentially if Zach Ertz doesn't drop that 4th down pass.
Yep.
And, we've talked about the Zach Ertz, the Dallas Goedert talk a lot, but you can't. If you want to be paid big, you can't drop a pass like that in a key moment. It was a pass right in his hands. You want to be one of the top 3 paid tight ends in the league. Top 3 tight ends in the league don't drop that pass. And that did not help his argument at all. And maybe there's a little bit of distractions. There were some rumors going around right before the game started, and I tweeted them out and shared them out there that Howie Roseman and Zach Ertz got into it, whether it was last night or this morning, that could have put some distraction in Zach Ertz, could have affected the way he played. And if that starts circulating around the locker room, there's a lot of people that are Zach Ertz fans in that locker room. Could that have affected the mindset of the team as a whole going into the game? It's something to think about. But again, Zach Ertz dropping that pass on 4th down, we're starting to get a little momentum. We're starting to move the field. That could have changed everything there at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I would say you're exactly right. I'll say the big rule: if that ball hits your hands, you catch that football. And exactly. and who knows what happens? They were getting a little bit of a rhythm. They were chipping away a little bit. If he doesn't drop that pass, they might have the big touchdown to tie the football game. We might be talking about an Eagles victory, but unfortunately we are not. This is all about the Birds post-game live show. We appreciate everyone tuning in with the comments. We want to hear from you in the comments. Who do you blame for today's loss? What do you see happening the rest of the season? Maybe your thoughts on today's game. Make sure to check out the comments. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel page. So make sure to give all those a like. We will be going live after every single Eagles game, and we will be live also again this Wednesday, a little preview show for Sunday's game against the Los Angeles Rams next week. We'll have a special guest on with us, current Eagle Craig James. Which did you even see him out there?
I saw him on one kick or punt. I can't remember what, but outside of that, I did not see him out there on the field. I saw LeBlanc out there a few times, but I did not see him on the field for any defensive plays at all.
But I'll say we'll have him on this Wednesday, 8:30 start on Facebook, Twitter, and also our YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out this coming Wednesday. But it's just a devastating. I would say there was a lot of high hopes from some people, including yourself, picking them to go to the Super Bowl this year. They can still change the season around, but you have to win.
I'm not jumping off the cliff after one game, not at all.
But you have to win. You have to win the football games against the teams you're supposed to win. If you're in a contending football team in the National Football League, you beat the teams you're supposed to beat. You're going up against Dwayne Haskins, who had 7-8 starts last season. If that, he hasn't had a full season under his belt yet, and I would say he's
a bad quarterback, and you made him look average, and that's really bad because he is not a good quarterback. He's not a 17 for 31 quarterback. He's a 12 for 31 quarterback. It's really bad. You made a bad guy look good. No, you got the comment there.
You were talking, so I decided.
I was trying to pull it up so I could read it. Wentz had some bad throws. The O-line looks bad. Play calling was bad, and we never moved the pocket for Wentz. I mean, that's pretty much the entire post-game show here. I mean, that sums up everything that happened in this game. And that's another thing, the moving the pocket for Wentz, that didn't happen. We haven't really touched on that part of it. You know, you got to get Wentz. If the pocket is going to constantly collapse, you got to run some rollouts. You got to run some plays that moving him side to side. He actually is really good quarterback when he's moving side to side. Yeah. And I don't think I remember seeing him, design roll out to the right or left once on a single play.
No, it wasn't design. There was a few times where protection broke down.
Yeah, but not on a design.
No, it wasn't a design play. And I'll say, and that's one thing that Dougie P didn't manage to do. He didn't manage to adjust his play calling, realizing that you have no protection up front. Washington is getting to your quarterback constantly. They might have been sacking him. I'll say there was times where they were just knocking him around. Wentz had no clean pocket for most of this football game. And that was one of the keys to the game for me, going to this that I wrote on aatbirds.com as well as on our pregame show on Wednesday. They need to have a clean pocket for Wentz and protect him up front, and they didn't do that. I'll say Wentz is the guy that's going to be carrying this football team. When you have no run game whatsoever, all the game is on his shoulders. He's going to be the one that's got to win or lose that football game for you. And unfortunately, I'll say he couldn't make enough plays today. We were hoping, but he just couldn't get the job done for Eagles today.
Yeah, I mean, as George checks in again, I mean, thanks for tuning in and watching the show. I mean, again, we made Haskins look good. He's not a good quarterback. We've made Kirk Cousins look good. We've made a lot of quarterbacks that aren't good look good at times. And again, I wrote down when you were talking there, adjustments. We've said it like 3-4 times. Yeah. The one thing we've always said when we've compared early Andy Reid to early Doug Peterson is at least Doug Peterson was willing to make adjustments. He did not do that today at all. He's just stuck with what he thought was going to work, and when it didn't work, he just kept doing it and doing it again. It's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and expecting different results. He needed to make changes today, and he just did not do that, and it's pretty disappointing.
I'll say Mike Weaver chimed in asking why did they throw screen passes? That was successful last year with Boston Scott. It was slow pass run. I agree with you. That's
they actually ran a few screenplays today, and every single one of them got blown up in the backfield. There was at least 2 or 3 of them that I remember counting, and that was something where Doug Peterson got scared and ran away from that way too quickly. You had some, obviously we had pass protection issues. There was several of them. There was one that I don't remember if it was Chase Young or the other side. He was it was Ryan Kerrigan, because he dropped back into the play and broke it up when he knew he wasn't getting to Wentz. I remember it now. It was Ryan Kerrigan, who doesn't it seem like Ryan Kerrigan, no matter how old he gets, he always has a great game against the Eagles. But yeah, they did try to run a few screenplays, but they did not go very well. And then he just never went back to trying it again.
Well, I'll say, he completely got away from it. There were a few times, but also I'll say just the blocking. I'll say the few times they did, I'll say you didn't have the personnel out there from the wide receiver. And I'll say we bashed Alshon Jeffrey quite a bit, but one of the good things about him, he's a decent blocking wide receiver down the field. And I'll say with Rager, and I'll say you have Rager out there, you have Deshaun. These guys are undersized. They're not going to be able to block for the running back. And then Jason Peters, I'm sorry. I know they brought him back to protect Carson Wentz, but he's not the Jason Peters of old that was very agile to get outside and open, basically be almost a fullback out there blocking for the running back on the outside down the field on a screenplay. He just doesn't have it anymore. But I don't know.
Yeah. I definitely saw some rust. I don't know if it was rust or age with Jason Peters. I mean, he spent all of camp working at right guard, reteaching his feet and his hands what to do. And then you just instantly expected him to slide back over to left tackle with no real work at it and expect him to be a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame level guy again. It just wasn't going to happen. And that definitely was an issue there. But, We believed our own hype. Yeah, I believe the hype. I still believe the hype. I still believe this Eagles team is a good team.
They're a decent team, but I would say there's just too many holes on this team. And we saw today, they do not have the depth. They lost Brandon Graham. They lost Vinnie Curry. And then Jackson kept on getting hurt. Their one big injury.
I don't know what was going on with Jackson today. He definitely disappeared a lot today. Yeah, and he wasn't even getting looked at on the field.
Well, there was one time he did go over to the trainer. I was reading some tweets from some of the beat reporters that he was talking to the trainer. They were looking at something. I don't know exactly what. And then he's like, I guess I'm going in. He told the trainer he was going back in. So, but I'll say this team, they're a decent football team. But unfortunately, Howie and the front office and Doug, they just left too many holes. And they're not going to be able to contend unless they catch some type of lightning in a bottle. I'll say I still stick with my 9-7, but if after today they could easily be a 7-9, 8-8 football team and miss the playoffs.
It's really interesting to see what happens with the injuries when they give us like real details on them the next day or so, which I'm sure we will have all that information when we do our show Wednesday night for the next week's game. But yeah, I mean, do we have any other positives to talk about? Anything else that you saw today? That you want to touch on? We got to have some positive talk in this episode.
The one positive talk, and I'll say it was one
thing. Johnny not being on the show, we got to have one positive on this show.
I'll say the one positive. I'll say, despite them losing, they were able to get out to a quick start. I'll say the one thing Philadelphia sucked at last season was getting off to the quick starts, getting a lead early on. And I would say they scored 17 points in the first half. I remember, I think last year, or I brought up the stat on Wednesday, they scored an average of 4.4 points in the first quarter all of last season. And I think at games they were trailing at half, they were like 3-6. So one positive, I'll say they were able to get off to a good start. The one thing they needed to do, they need to play 4 quarters of football. They need to go out there and execute all 4 quarters for them to win football game. I know it's an old cliche, but they demonstrated it today. They played well. They thought they were going to destroy Washington with like a 15-0 lead by the end of the football game, and it just completely reversed. Momentum shifter there with Carson with that interception, and it was just wrapped up and all over from there. So I say the one bright side, they started off well, but they have to play. They have to continue playing that well the entire football game.
As Ted checks in about our secondary, it was nice to see Terry McLaurin not go off for 150 yards. I mean, he had like 61 yards catching or receiving, I believe it was, like 7 catches. Nobody really, dominated our secondary. No one got behind them on deep plays. Avonte Maddox almost had a pick. They both played pretty well. The one name I wrote down, and he only made one real noticeable play, but it was nice to see with Derek Barnett being out, was the strip sacked by Josh Sweat. That was nice to see. It was nice to see him step up and make a play on defense.
But I'll say ultimately unfortunately what ended this football game, and it was the big difference maker, was the turnovers. The fact that I'll say the Eagles defense, as well as they did, they couldn't get that takeaway. They couldn't get that playmaking play to help them put them over the hump or seal the game or keep them in the game. Even though they played well, they just couldn't get that. And unfortunately, the Eagles lost the turnover battle, -2 with Carson Wentz 2 interceptions, which turned into 14 points. And that's a big difference maker. If those 2 turnovers don't happen, we might be talking about a 17-13 lead. You take those 14 points off the board. I know it's what if, because what else could have happened if they didn't throw those interceptions, or what Washington would have done. But we just have to go by what we saw on the field and what happened, and it's just one of those things that
it's definitely one of my biggest concerns coming into this year that I didn't talk about a lot, was just the lack of the offseason, the team just not being ready. And you would think that the other team wouldn't be ready as well.
Sorry, -2 they were. Try about the fumble they had.
No. Still, you lose the turnover battle, you lose the focus. You don't play a full 4 quarters, you're not going to win a football game. And that's what happened today. And it was really disappointing to see, because I expect more out of a Doug Peterson coach team. I expect the team to be ready. I don't expect them to come out and lay an egg against a Washington football. This was the first loss that Washington's ever had against the Eagles since Carson Wentz has started, right?
Carson started since 2017.
5-0 in his last 5 games against Washington.
Yeah.
All right, so it's been since his rookie year. So that's definitely a concern, because it's a team that Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson has dominated, and they didn't do that. And how are they going to face, like we've heard other people say, against Seattle or New Orleans or LA next week, when we can't play a game like that? I'm sorry, I'm losing it now, because I'm starting to get more frustrated than I was before we started this.
Oh, it was a very frustrating game. Me and you were talking before the game, like, screw this. I'll say it was a game that was an outcome that we shouldn't be talking about. We should be talking about a Philadelphia Eagles team that's 1-0, starting the season off right, going to next week against LA, who I'll say some people are considering a playoff team this season. They try to start the season 2-0, but now we're talking about an 0-1 football team. They lose a divisional matchup to an inferior opponent on paper that we probably should have beat. And I would say, at the end of the year, I understand there's an extra playoff spot now, but these games matter, especially divisional games. All these tiebreakers, and now you're in the hole of the first week of the season, and the schedule doesn't get much easier down the stretch. I would say we have LA Rams at home next week. We have the Bengals the following week, which I'll say, who knows if Joe Burrow picks things up and is able to be apparently against quarterbacks that have barely any experience. The
Bengals are beating the Chargers right now. Bengals are winning. It's 15 seconds till halftime. I threw up the thing, and they're up 7-3, so they're winning the game right now. The Rams, we'll see how they do tonight, but
And then then we have the 49ers the following week on the road. So the next couple games, and the Steelers and the Ravens. Right now, I'm not too optimistic. I understand a lot of things can happen. The Eagles are typically a team, well, not under Doug Peterson, but history as a whole, to start off season slow. But the fact I'll say Doug Peterson was 4-0 going to season openers, going to this game, and now they lose this. It's a little discouraging. I don't know. I'm just getting a little frustrated, and it's one of those things.
George is popping on here again and reminding us to stay calm because it's a marathon, not a race. It's so true. Every team is going to have major injuries this year. We do have to watch how it all plays out, and I appreciate the positive vibe here because as we keep going on here, we're on 45 minutes into this thing. At first we were just talking, we were breaking it down. Now we're just getting frustrated at this point, and. We do have to remember that it is a long season. You said it on Wednesday night, or maybe Johnny did. We're going to win games that we didn't expect to win, and we're going to lose games we expected to win. This is one of those games we expected to win, and we just didn't.
But I'll say I understand it's a long season, but this ain't like basketball or baseball where if you lose a game, okay, it's not really going to affect you that much. To lose to a divisional opponent like Washington at the first week of the season, and then you have the rest of this schedule coming up, I'll say they might get lucky on a game here and there that will probably offset this game. But there's going to be towards the end of the year, there's going to be something's going to happen with tiebreakers or with another team that's like going to be like, okay, we needed one game, and what one game are we going to look back that we probably should have won and didn't, and it's going to affect us from making the playoffs, and it's going to be this Washington game.
There's no other game on the schedule other than the next game we play against Washington that you could say is this game was 100% win. It should have been 100% win, and the rest of the games, I mean, the Giants are better. Cincinnati, we don't know because they have a rookie quarterback. There's some reason you can explain them losing all these other games coming up. This was a game that you were supposed to come out, dominate, be up 1-0 on the season, and it just didn't work out that way. We can't get depressed. We can't get sad. We can't jump off the cliff on this team. We still have an elite quarterback in Carson Wentz.
Is he? Is he after that?
Even elite quarterbacks have bad games from time to time.
They have bad games, but I would say you don't have a catastrophical meltdown like Carson Wentz did today.
It wasn't all on Wentz's shoulders.
No, it wasn't completely all on his shoulders, but I'll say you win with the quarterback, you lose as a quarterback. And I'll say
win as a team, you lose as a team.
You do.
That's the saying.
Yeah, but I'll say still has the praise and the blame is going to go with the quarterback. That's the reason why Donovan got ripped as much as he did in this city, because I would say people felt that he was never a guy that can win the big game or a guy that can win in the big moment. And Carson, I would say he played well in the first half, but where was he in the second half? I understand, I would say it wasn't completely all on him, but there was still times where he was overthrowing receivers. He was forcing passes, and a lot of it, I feel he lost his confidence, and you don't want that from your franchise quarterback. You need a guy to go out there and like, okay, I can go out there and make the big play in the next play. Forget the last play in your head. Go out there and perform. And he just looked rattled. He knew he wasn't having the protection up front, which I would say Jeff Stoutland and Doug Peterson need to fix this week in training, in practice, because Aaron Donald, I'll say they're not gonna have an answer for him, and it was pathetic and sad. I'll say that we saw an All-Pro center like Jason Kelsey get blown up as much as he did. I'll say I know we're talking about the right.
Not play well at all. I got a funny question for you. We're just gonna make light of the situation a little bit here. I'm going through my notes trying to find things I haven't touched on. At the top is all the inactives today. How many more games of Wentz not looking elite until we start hearing fans calling for a certain quarterback that was inactive today, who a lot of people expected him to be in there for gadgets. I said he wasn't going to be active for the first 2, 3, 4 weeks of the season. But how soon will it be? How many more games like this for Carson Wentz? So you're going to hear on Sports Talk, on our podcast, on all over social media, people going, well, it's time to bring in Jalen Hurts to play quarterback and all. It's going to happen. We know it is.
Well, it's going to happen. Also, maybe they need that spark. Maybe they need that. I know I was a huge fan against the whole Wildcat situation, or bringing in a quarterback and taking your starting quarterback out just for a play or two. I felt it kind of ruins the rhythm of the offense. But hey, for how predictable the Eagles' offense was today, maybe they do need a little spark like Jalen Hurts out there to make a big play for them. I would say,
and then you bring him out there and he makes a spark, and then all of a sudden everybody's going to be like, he should be starting over Carson Wentz. So that's not what you want.
It's not what you want. You don't want the quarterback controversy, but honestly, you need to go out there and perform. And if Doug feels that he's a guy that can make your team better, I would say then why not? I'm not saying start over Wentz. I'm saying like come in here and go for a couple plays here and there. But I know Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson were a type of in the off season and going into this year, they kept on saying they don't want to rush Jalen Hurts. So I don't know if we're going to see him too much this season. Maybe halfway through the year if Sudfeld doesn't show to be a quality backup, or Wentz struggles, or whatever happens. But I'm
trying to, while you're talking, I'm trying to go through my Twitter feed to see if we missed anything else. But the one thing I've seen 3 times in like 30 seconds here, if Ertz is happy, Ertz doesn't drop that 4th down pass. And it's something that I want to get back to. Does that make a difference? Does that distraction hurt his focus? And maybe he catches that pass, and like we said before, we're winning this game if he doesn't drop that pass.
I think it's I think it might be a distraction, but when it comes to on-field play, I don't know if it's going to be that much of a distraction for him. I was like, because once again, we keep on saying that he needs to go out there and get his contract, and for him to drop a pass, that doesn't help his case. That doesn't help his trade. That doesn't help his trade value. That doesn't help him getting a contract with another team if he goes somewhere else. So I don't feel him dropping that pass had anything to do with the contract situation. Honestly, on that play, I felt, and I'm not putting this on Wentz because Ertz should have caught that, but with the protection failing as much as it was up front on that play, I felt Wentz kind of rushed that throw a little bit. And I'll say, I don't know if Ertz maybe wasn't expecting it this quickly or wasn't expecting the pass, but I'll say just my take from that look on that play.
There's another thing you were saying when the protection broke down there on that play. It's something that he didn't do at all today, Carson Wentz, and he normally does. Is if I'm remembering the play correctly in my mind, the image of the play, he could have stepped up and ran for that 1st down. And Carson did not, like we talked about him not having plays called rolling side to side. He didn't scramble at all. He didn't try, like he did his whole avoid the sack thing all game long, but you never actually, he's not a running quarterback, but he does know how to pick up 1st downs with his legs. And he did not try to do that once today. And on that Ertz drop, it's a play that there was nobody in front of him. He could have stepped up, probably gotten that 1st down on his own, and that is something else to think of.
Well, maybe he's just being cautious. I'll say, look at one of the last times he's did that. That's when he tore his ACL against LA when they snapped his leg. So I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to be a little more cautious and from getting injured.
Season long versus just now.
And I'll say, George, I understand there's no preseason. I'm not putting the blame on Carson, but he didn't help his cause today. And I'll say he was a big focal point in them losing today. But I was like, wasn't the main reason. I'm not
letting. I know I say Wentz is elite all the time, and I will continue to say that, and I will still say he's one of the top 4 quarterbacks in this league. But this game is Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, 1A, 1B. They are your 2 biggest issues from today. Obviously, the offensive line problems, but those two people have to do a better job, play calling and performing out there. I mean, your two best players, or player and coach, they have to lead a team, and they did not do that today at all. There was no leadership whatsoever from either of them out there today.
No. So I'll say this is All About the Birds post-game live show. We appreciate everyone chiming in, listening, tuning in. We'll be back this coming Wednesday night when we have Craig James, current Eagles defensive back and special teamer, on the show, 8:30 start. We'll be going live on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe there. So I don't know if you want to wrap things up. I'll say I don't know if you have.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, like I said, this game is a disappointing way to start the season. We just have to get back at it next week. I'd love to hear what Craig James has to say. If you have questions for Craig James, those people that are listening, definitely let us know, or be watching the show live, and we'll ask him some of the questions that pop up on the screen. They just have to really buckle down this week and figure out that offensive line. And I would not be surprised if they brought Cordy Glenn back in this week and tried to get him back on the team. They got to do something with the offensive line, and hopefully Lane Johnson's back next week. But I just don't feel. I feel like this might be one of those lingering injury issues.
And it's well, the injury itself, but even if he comes back, I still feel the offensive line's going to be struggling. Yeah. I'll say whether Pryor's at right guard or if Herbig's
that's. I mean, I know we want to wrap this up, but that's something that really boggles my mind that he did not see the field today, Matt Pryor.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why.
Especially since he was a guy that I would say for all of training camp, he was running with the ones at right guard when Peters wasn't in, or when they were moving Peters to left tackle this week of training camp. So I don't know if maybe there was an injury or.
I mean, I figured he was going to be that guy. I was not surprised that he didn't start because they wanted to keep him available to bounce to if Peters went down for a few plays, or if somebody else got hurt, that he could swing back and forth. But once Jack Driscoll went out, there's no reason to imagine that he wasn't out on that field at all. And I just don't get it. So hopefully, like Todd checks in, Miles Sanders is back next week. That makes a huge difference in the game.
Especially the offensive game plan. I would say, and that's one of the things we kept on bringing up. I would say if Miles Sanders gets hurt, can you rely on Boston Scott or Corey Clement to be the guys to carry the workload and perform for your offense? And today was a prime example. No, that wasn't the case.
I said it about Greg Ward a lot, and I said it a few times in the offseason about Boston Scott. We got hyped for these two guys. But really, what did they do last year? They didn't put up flashy numbers. We needed Boston Scott or Corey Clement to put up flashy numbers today, like Miles Sanders would, and they didn't do that because that's not what they are. They're not lead guys. They're not flashy guys. Miles Sanders being out is a huge key to losing this game today.
Well, I'll say definitely, especially with his elusiveness. I'll say the run game wasn't completely on Boston Scott and Corey Clement. I'll say there was just no holes whatsoever. And once again, one of the big things was the offensive line. They couldn't protect up front. They couldn't open any holes in the run game. And ultimately, it spelled disaster for the Eagles offense and losing this football game in the end. So I'll say hopefully Miles Sanders can get healthy. They can get Lane Johnson healthy. And that's the big key. Getting healthy for the rest of the season. It sucks. It sucks the amount of injuries that they have, but at least it's somewhere in the beginning of the year they can get things back on track and hopefully go on a deep run, hopefully into the playoffs, and who knows what can happen from there. So as we wrap things up here on the All About the Birds post-game live show, follow us on Twitter at AAT Birds. Phil did a great job tweeting throughout the game today, so make sure to check all our in-game reactions. It'll maybe Phil next week, myself or Johnny. One of us will be tweeting next week.
I'll be live from the Outer Banks next Sunday. Headed down there on Thursday night, Friday morning. So hopefully I don't have internet issues next week, but I'll just do it from my phone. I don't control the recording. So, but I'll be live from the beach next Sunday night.
So, yeah, I'll say you can follow myself at Jeff Warner NFL, Phil at Beard of Knowledge, Johnny, who is not with us at the moment. So you can follow him at JohnnyU9322. We'll be back live this coming Wednesday, 8:30 with Craig James previewing the Los Angeles Rams matchup for this coming Sunday as we wrap up here at AAT Birds Live. The Philadelphia Eagles unfortunately drop today's game 27-17 to the Washington football team, start this season 0-1. Hopefully next week we'll be talking after the postgame show with a victory. So appreciate everyone tuning in, and everyone have a great night. Peace.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
That's right.